What happens when a 1914 machine gun crew opens fire on the walls of ancient Jerusalem? Imagine a cosmic tear in reality instantly ripping 100,000 fully equipped United States soldiers out of World War I and dropping them right into Antiquity. We are talking about modern tactical doctrines, millions of rounds of ammunition, and heavy artillery batteries staring down a fortress built on swords, stone walls, and divine faith. Before we break down the terrifying reality of this industrialized slaughter, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with a friend. You will not want to miss a single second of how this mind-bending scenario unfolds. To truly understand the scale of this confrontation, we have to look beyond the numbers. A force of 100,000 US soldiers in 1914 is not just a crowd of men. It is a highly organized, bureaucratic machine designed to consume resources and output sheer destruction. Under the command of officers trained in the legacy of the Civil War and the evolving doctrines of European conflict, this expeditionary force carries an unimaginable mountain of supply. We are talking about tens of thousands of horses and mules for transport, thousands of supply wagons, mobile field kitchens, and medical tents. More importantly, they carry the lifeblood of 20th century warfare: ammunition. Millions of brass-cased .30-06 rifle cartridges, thousands of belts for heavy machine guns, and tens of thousands of high-explosive and shrapnel shells for the artillery regiments. When the temporal distortion clears, these 100,000 men do not panic. They are American doughboys and regulars. They are disciplined, structured, and trained to adapt. As they look out across the arid landscape and see the unmistakable limestone walls of Jerusalem rising in the distance, the chains of command hold fast. Officers consult maps that no longer match the terrain. Scouts are sent out on horseback, and the machinery of the United States Army begins to grind into motion. They do not know how they got here, but they know their objective: secure the high ground, establish a perimeter, and prepare to take the city. Part 2. The immovable fortresto. Understand how this massive conflict would play out. We first have to look at the battlefield itself. Ancient Jerusalem was not an easy target. In Antiquity, this city was a legendary fortress, protected by massive stone walls, deep valleys, and strategic high ground that had thwarted some of the greatest empires in human history. The defenders of the ancient world relied heavily on the natural, unforgiving terrain. The city was flanked by steep drops, the Kidron Valley to the east, the Hinnom Valley to the south and west, that made direct cavalry charges or rapid infantry advances nearly impossible. To attack Jerusalem meant fighting uphill against gravity, scrambling over loose rock while exposed to missile fire from above. The city's war strategy was entirely defensive, built around the concept of enduring a long, grueling siege. The rulers of Jerusalem knew that the Judean wilderness was dry and unforgiving to invaders. Therefore, they secured their water lines through brilliant engineering, utilizing hidden underground networks like Hezekiah's tunnel to bring water from the Gihon spring directly inside the city walls, completely hidden from the eyes of an enemy. Their massive storehouses were packed to the brim with grain, dried fruits, and salted meats, capable of sustaining the civilian and military population for months, if not years. Up on the parapets, the defenders of Jerusalem stand ready. Depending on the exact century of Antiquity, these could be the battle-hardened soldiers of King David, the disciplined guards of the Judean monarchy, or a garrison facing down a historical invader. They are armed with the finest technology of their time: composite bows capable of piercing leather armor, heavy throwing stones smoothed by the riverbeds, and massive, tension-powered catapults or ballistae designed to rain jagged rock and burning pitch down on anyone attempting to breach the gates. To these ancient defenders, warfare is a trial of endurance, morale, and divine favor. They look down from their towering stone battlements, secure in the knowledge that their walls are several meters thick, constructed from solid, hand-carved limestone blocks. They have watched empires break themselves against these very defenses. They believe that as long as the walls hold and the water flows, they are entirely invincible. They look out into the valleys and see the strange, olive-drab lines of the American army. They see no siege towers being built. They see no massive battering rams being carved from timber. To the ancient mind, the invading force looks unprepared. They assume the Americans will try to starve them out, a tactic they are fully prepared to outlast. But the defenders are making a catastrophic mistake. They are applying the rules of ancient warfare to an enemy that has already rewritten them. Part 3. The machine of total war, the invading force in our scenario, is unlike anything the ancient world could have ever anticipated, feared, or even conceptualized in its darkest nightmares. The United States Army of 1914 represents the dawn of mechanized, total warfare. This is an army born from the Industrial Revolution, where victories are calculated by metallurgy, chemical compositions, and factory output. Their strategy is built not on patience, honor, or individual bravery, but on overwhelming, highly coordinated, and destructive firepower. Instead of relying on hand-to-hand combat, bloody melee charges, or simple wooden battering rams, a 1914 army uses an advanced military doctrine centered around coordinated artillery barrages and infantry suppression. They do not just attack walls, they obliterate them from miles away, long before the infantry even fixes bayonets. As the 100,000 U.S. soldiers materialize in the valley surrounding Jerusalem, they do not wait for negotiations. They immediately begin executing modern military protocols with cold, mechanical efficiency. The infantry, dressed in their standard-issue, olive-drab wool uniforms and campaign hats, quickly disperses across the terrain. They carry entrenching tools, small shovels that are about to transform the sacred landscape. Within hours, the Americans dig a massive, interconnected network of trenches, zigzagging across the ridges and valleys around the city. These trenches secure their positions, provide cover from any potential ancient missile fire, and prevent any surprise nighttime counterattacks or cavalry sorties from the city gates. While the infantry establishes the front lines, the heavy weapons units move into position. Machine gun crews labor up the high ridges overlooking the city walls, hauling their heavy, water-cooled Maxim machine guns and Benate Mercier air-cooled automatic rifles. These weapons are the true executioners of the battlefield. Capable of firing hundreds of rounds of heavy-caliber ammunition per minute, they are strategically placed in interlocking zones of fire. The American gunners calibrate their sights, aiming directly at the battlements of Jerusalem. With this setup, the machine guns can create a literal, impenetrable wall of flying lead. The moment an ancient archer steps up to the parapet to draw a bow, a hail of supersonic bullets will chew through the stone and flesh alike, making it absolutely impossible for any defender to even peek over the stone battlements without instantly losing their life. Behind the security of the trenches and the terrifying glare of the machine gun nests, the true instruments of devastation begin to take shape. The artillery units, utilizing teams of horses and heavy transport wagons, assemble their field guns in defilated positions behind the ridges. They unlimber the legendary M190 23-inch field guns and massive, heavy howitzers. In 1914, artillery strategy does not rely on looking at the target with the naked eye. It relies on cold mathematics, calculated coordinates, precise map plotting, and forward observers stationed on distant peaks with high-powered binoculars. The U.S. commanders look through their optics, completely bypassing the natural defense valleys that had protected Jerusalem for centuries. To a modern army, those steep, rocky valleys are not defensive barriers. They are simply open, pre-calculated kill zones. The trap is set, the guns are loaded, and the ancient world is about to witness the true terrifying power of the 20th century. Part 4. The Iron Tempest. The command is given, the flags drop, and the bombardment begins. The sound is absolutely deafening, a roaring, continuous thunder that the ancient world has never heard before, a sound that shakes the very marrow of the bone. It is not the sound of a storm. It is the sound of human industry turned into pure malice. The field guns recoil violently, spitting fire and smoke as they launch high-explosive projectiles and shrapnel shells through the sky. The shells arc high over the valleys, singing a terrifying metallic whistle as they hurtle toward the ancient city. The defenders inside Jerusalem have no time to comprehend what is happening. Suddenly, the sky seems to fall. Shrapnel shells explode prematurely in midair directly above the streets, raining thousands of jagged, red-hot steel balls down onto the open-air markets, courtyards, and plazas. Anyone caught in the open is instantly cut down. Seconds later, the high-explosive artillery shells make contact with the grand limestone walls of Jerusalem. These walls, built with immense pride and designed to withstand the heaviest rams and catapults of antiquity, offer absolutely no protection against modern chemical explosives. The impacts are catastrophic. Upon contact, the shells detonate with a blinding flash, unleashing a concussive shockwave that shatters the ancient masonry. Solid stone towers, which had stood for generations as symbols of military might, shatter into dust and rubble within minutes. Massive, yawning gaps are blown wide open in the city's perimeter walls as the continuous bombardment systematically dismantles the defenses block by block. Inside the city, the sheer concussive force of the exploding shells shakes the very foundations of the earth. The vibrations collapse ancient homes, shatter pottery, and fill the narrow, cobblestone streets with thick, blinding clouds of white dust and black smoke. Absolute, unbridled panic spreads through the ancient population. They have no framework to understand this. They do not see an enemy army. They see no soldiers scaling the walls. They only experience a distant, invisible power that is ripping their world apart with the sound of a fractured sky. On the battlements, any surviving defenders try to return fire with their catapults and bows, but the effort is entirely futile. The moment a defensive crew gathers around a ballista, the hidden American forward observers spot the movement through their binoculars. They relay the coordinates via field telephones back to the battery commanders. Within moments, a fresh volley of artillery shells obliterates the catapult crew into oblivion. Meanwhile, any archer attempting to shoot from the broken walls is instantly suppressed by the continuous, rhythmic thud of the Maxim machine guns, their bullets chipping away at the remaining stone and sending lethal stone splinters flying into the air. The technology of 1914 has completely bypassed, outranged, and destroyed the ancient warfare strategies of Jerusalem without a single American soldier having to cross the valley floor. Part 5. The celestial silence, the modern weapons are working flawlessly, executing their destructive purpose with terrifying precision. The artillery has systematically dismantled the city's outer defenses, rendering the ancient fortress completely vulnerable. The long-range Springfield rifles and heavy machine guns have suppressed any and all remaining attempts at resistance. From a purely human technological standpoint, the battle is entirely one-sided. It is an industrial slaughter. The tactical doctrine of the 20th century has utterly crushed the ancient world. Down in the trenches, the U.S. infantrymen fix their long, gleaming bayonets to their rifles. The whistles blow, signaling the order to advance through the smoking, breached walls. The soldiers step up out of the dirt, entirely confident that victory is only moments away, and that Jerusalem will fall before noon. But just as the modern forces move forward to secure the city, the entire atmosphere of the Judean wilderness changes in an instant. Suddenly, a profound, heavy, and absolute hush falls over the entire battlefield. The roaring thunder of the artillery abruptly stops mid-discharge. The mechanical, rhythmic clicking of the machine guns ceases instantly. The sound of whistling shells vanishes from the air. Soldiers lower their weapons, looking down at them in absolute frozen confusion. Infantrymen pull their triggers, but the firing pins strike the primers with dull, useless clicks. Machine gunners clear their chambers, only to find that their weapons will no longer cycle. Deep within the artillery casings, the gunpowder has completely lost its chemical spark. The nitrocellulose has been rendered inert, its volatile energy wiped away as if by magic. The vast, complex machinery of industrial warfare simply dies, rendered completely useless, silent, and dead by an unseen, overwhelming presence. A wave of intense, unnatural, and primordial dread washes over the 100,000 U.S. soldiers. The air grows thick, heavy, and difficult to breathe, charged with an immense static electricity that makes the hairs on their arms stand on end. The ground begins to vibrate, not from the crude, mechanical explosions of artillery, but from a terrifying, cosmic power descending directly from the heavens above. The bright midday sky darkens rapidly, the sun obscured by a sudden, unnatural twilight. The clouds part only to reveal a blinding, brilliant flash of ethereal light that illuminates the entire valley with a terrifying radiance. High in the heavens, glowing, majestic figures faintly appear, radiating an ancient, incomprehensible energy that completely defies the laws of physics and human understanding. Before a single American commander can shout an order, before a bugler can sound a retreat, the supreme power strikes. A massive, invisible, and irresistible force sweeps violently through the ranks of the American camp like a solar wind. It does not look like human warfare. There are no flying bullets, no flashing blades, and no screams of the wounded. It is a swift, absolute, and majestic wave of divine intervention that neutralizes the entire invading force in a matter of moments. The peak of human technology, the pride of industrial might, and the arrogance of the 20th century are instantly humbled, quieted, and wiped away by a transcendent force that operates completely outside the boundaries of time, space, and mortality. Part 6. The lessons of the Showdown. When dawn breaks the following morning, the sun rises brightly and warmly over an untouched, completely peaceful Jerusalem. The air is crisp and clean, devoid of the smell of cordite, sulfur, or smoke. The massive stone walls and grand towers, which just hours prior had been reduced to rubble by high-explosive artillery, are miraculously and perfectly restored, gleaming like gold in the early morning light. Down in the valleys, the vast networks of trenches dug by the modern army are completely empty, reclaimed by the shifting sands and desert winds. An eerie, absolute, and beautiful quiet hangs over the valley where 100,000 soldiers once stood poised for conquest. Every machine gun, every artillery piece, every uniform, and every shell casing has vanished completely into the pages of history, leaving absolutely no trace behind, as if the modern world had never dared to touch the ancient soil. Let us review the force breakdown summary. Regarding the 1914 United States Army, their primary weapons included Springfield rifles, Maxim machine guns, and heavy howitzers. Their defense strategy focused on interconnected trenches, suppressive fire, and forward observation. Their main tactical advantage lay in long-range, indirect firepower, and industrial logistics. Their ultimate fate was to be vanished completely by a transcendent cosmic force. Regarding the ancient Jerusalem garrison, their primary weapons consisted of traditional bows, catapults, ballistae, swords, and shields. Their defense strategy relied on massive limestone walls, natural valleys, and hidden water tunnels. Their main tactical advantage was found in high ground terrain and long-term siege sustainability. Their ultimate fate saw them miraculously restored to a state of absolute peace. This ultimate historical showdown leaves us with a chilling, profound, and deeply humbling question. When humanity reaches the absolute pinnacle of its technological arrogance, when we believe that our weapons, our science, and our machinery have made us the masters of existence, what good are those modern weapons of war when faced with the inexplicable, the cosmic, and the divine? The industrial might of 1914 could easily dismantle the works of ancient man, but it was utterly powerless against the supreme forces that govern the universe itself. It reminds us that no matter how advanced our weapons become, there are boundaries that humanity was never meant to cross. As a final thought, remember this: true power does not lie in the ability to destroy stone and flesh with fire and iron. It lies in the authority to silence the tempest and restore peace in an instant. If you want to see more mind-bending, epic historical what-if scenarios that challenge everything you think you know about history, technology, and warfare, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on how this battle turned out. Do you think a modern army could find a way to overcome the supernatural, or is humanity always destined to be humbled? Share this video with someone who loves a great historical mystery